was a native doctor. When Mosai Nahili came to my community in 1918 and met my great-great-grandfather, he asked for a glass of water, of which my great-grandfather told his son, Mwachuku, translated, Son of God, go and bring the water for him. And he asked the interpreter, what did he call the boy? He said, his name is Son of God. He said, does he believe in God? He said, yes, he believes in God. Then he has a deity on the right side of his compound, and he went there and poured water, and I see traces of blood, of goat, and all that. If he believes in God, what is that? And my great-grandfather said, oh, God the Creator, who is omniscience, omnipotent. We can't see him. When you look at his eye in the afternoon, is the sun. And in the night, it is the moon. But we have to have an interlocutor altar where we go to pass messages to him. And this is our altar of communication to him. And when he is very busy, we use this altar to adjudicate justice. The Mosino said, this is quite interesting. These people are easily convertible because they have a belief system. In 1929, they built a Catholic parish, but did not attempt to destroy any of the deities. So what he now did was to send emissaries to my great-grandfather and say, the same altar you have, we have built inside a church. Send your people there so that after they finish with your altar, they can come to my altar and also talk direct to God through my own altar. So that psychology of conversion, the infrastructure was put in place. Therefore, the American Declaration in 1776 were not wrong in talking about freedom because it's divine. But where I think we in the international community have got it wrong is in the narrative. And then the various organs of churches that cropped up and entered Africa. Africa became a fertile ground for religious polarization. My late father was watching the television during the Antifada, and he laughed. I said, why are you laughing? This is serious business. He said, anyone who thinks he can bring peace to the Middle East, no human can do it. I said, why do you say that? He said, war has been happening there dating back 3,000 years ago. The Abyssinians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Israel, all these are centered in the Holy Book of the Bible. And the same God, who is very fair Democrat, did something that we, the world, are puzzled. Even the Quran accepts, according to Muslims, that he said, the Israelis are my children. Whomever is against them is against me. It is also in the Quran. It is also in the Bible. So that puzzle made us believe that even in being a Democrat, he has also shown some sign of partiality in adopting the Israel as his own. Therefore, in the real world of Africa, we are now polarized. When the Muslims of the Middle East are feeling the hurt, the Muslims of Africa are saying the Western interest must be destroyed because they are pro-Israel. Then when Israel is feeling hurt, the Christian who go to pilgrimage in Israel say, damn these Arabs. But the genesis of the problem, the African countries do not know. But they have become the beneficiaries of the negative effect. So those who want to propagate hate, first they start saying American and Israeli interests must be attacked. So Al-Shabaab comes in, Al-Qaeda Islamic Maghreb comes in, all the Sahel region, that comes in. And then the West is saying to us, promote democracy, promote good governance. But nobody has asked us a salient question. Who is the African child? How did I, a child soldier, overcome the difficulties of not seeing my parents for 3 years in a brutal civil war? And there were no psychoanalysts to reform me. The PTSD or PTSD syndrome that we suffered, it was the community that rallied and said, those who lost their parents to pogrom, we are with you. We will raise you. It was the church, again, that came in partnership with the community. I was lucky and privileged because I had parents that were well educated. And then I had the marriage brothers that said, we're going to take this young man and get him saved again. Because I was having nightmares of what I saw as atrocities in that civil war. So we need to come up. The United Nations is filled of contradictions. The attack in the United Nations building in Nigeria was simply calibrated because Nigerian government said that they support the transitional government of Libya. Then Libya activated the sleeper cells of Muammar Gaddafi that were in Nigeria to teach Nigeria a lesson that United Nations vision can be touched. And that happened. So we are not safe, except if we go back again to the background and perhaps what Rabbi had said, moment of silence meant to me as a child, growing up in Catholic school. We prayed during assembly before we went to class. And it is very difficult for you to kill someone that prayed with you in the morning until the military took over schools in Nigeria and abolished prayer and brought in the pledge to the flag of Nigeria. And we now pledged and lost the morality that connects us to the being of that moment of silence that gives us individual right to believe that there is someone that sees and hears. Thank you.
Sorry, yes, James.
Yeah, we heard earlier, and there's reference today, about the porous borders for guns. One issue that I think spans the whole process is the American gun manufacturers and people like the Koch brothers who are fostering division. And they have enabled the cartels in Mexico. They have the guns, and evidently they find fertile ground in the countries of Africa where they dump the guns, right?
The American market the demand for weapons in America is greater. Of all the weapons cataloged in Africa, they are made in South Africa, in China, in Ukraine, and Russia. And the preferred choice of weapon is AK-47.
Yeah.
You hardly see the American-made Beretta. You know,
but AK-47s are made in America.
But not the one that are made here that we see. And you don't even see the M16. So these are cheap weapons that China can bring in and South Africa can bring in.
But the point that I'm making is that in our country, we have forces so powerful that they can prevent even background checks. And this kind of divisiveness that you hear, I mean, we can talk about the media. And one of the concerns that I have is the media is becoming more and more dominated by a few billionaire corporations. 90% is getting close. And in that particular case, one of the things that they do, and and you can mention Fox News as an example. I have heard, and this is the kind of divisiveness that you're talking about. Sean Hannity, first Pastor Wright. He talked about Pastor Wright. Why? Because Pastor Wright thought Louis Farrakhan, an Islamic cleric, was bad. And so the notion goes down to the level of the churches. I mean, I think you mentioned that the churches in Africa, that they come in and then they say everybody who's not a Christian is a heathen.
Yes.
And that do that here. And the notion of American exceptionalism, you know, is founded on that kind of divisiveness. And the kinds of things that you're saying is the kind of thing that I have believed for a long time. That the idea of people, you know, getting together and looking at the positive aspects of the gospel or the Quran. I know friends who are Islamic, and they talk about how extreme the Taliban are, that they are not Islamic, that just like many of the conservative churches in our country are not Christian. So when we talk about divisiveness as a profitable process, then I think that we need to look at the source of those people who are promoting that divisiveness.
I think I just have a little comment. It's the topic of today, which is this dialogue. I think small arms and light weapon is a little part that is fueling the crisis, because whether it is dirty bombs that the terrorist groups use or sophisticated weapons, we notice that a lot of these weapons, some of them are not marked. They just manufactured, whether it's in the United States or in any other country, they proliferate, they cross borders. It can be manufactured in Ohio without any label, and they sent it to Ukraine, or they sent it to anywhere. Remember that what these people are looking for is any opportunity to move their equipment. And for them, is the protectors of the status quo. They don't want to change it. It is economy for them. It gives them money. But why it constitutes a threat to international peace and security is because when a man is armed, he feels he has power. If you look at all the weapons that the terrorist groups are using, some of them, even the national military, they don't have the kind of capacity that these terrorist groups do have. So I think it's just part of it. But I think the major undertaking there is, if you give me a gun to use and I decide I don't want to use it, it's my choice. So what is it on earth that will make me take up arms against anybody? It falls into what our brothers say, that is a long kind of complex issue, and I don't think we can be able to say, okay, this is just a particular prescription. This is what we can just do to stop it. I don't think it's visible.
I am familiar with the controversy and discussion with the Koch brothers, but if the topic is terrorism, the threat of youth in Africa, threat to international peace and security, I don't think that has anything to do with Africa.
We are a global society.
What's that?
It's global. We're not America borders. We're Mexico, where 30,000 people died in the drug wars.
I know the world is global, but knock off fake A-47s at $1,500, and they still have the old Soviet ones, and there's nothing to do with the Koch brothers. So So
ALEC, you're familiar with ALEC?
Yeah, well,
The American Legislative Exchange Council that's behind stand your ground and carry weapons.
Sorry,
I just want to, make a few comments. Thank you. I want to thank all the speakers. I think it was a great conversation or dialogue, if you will. I came late. My name is Carl Omunne. We are Republic Reporters. We also work in conjunction with the National Human Rights Monitor. So we were interested in this, but even though we had other engagements, we came in late. I want to look at economics. To me, I think this comes down to economic resource control, global. That's what it is. In the continent, or you call Africa, or even Nigeria, if you want to wait. I don't believe I'm Nigeria. I see myself as a BIAFRAN. We fought the Civil War, and we still believe that some of us believe that we want to restore Biafra, so we could be free. I believe that Islamic should be allowed to govern themselves. In the north, it's controlled by the Islamists and sponsored by, backed up by Al Qaeda, Boko Haram right now, and they're bombing everywhere. There's no government. Nigeria has failed. Nigeria is a failed state as we speak. I don't care whether you're a diplomat or not. Nigeria has failed. The resource is being looted daily. Nigeria pumped 3.5 million barrels per day. It's gone. They're looting it. They're stealing it. So it's coming down to the resources. The Civil War was about trying to control the resources in the east. Right now, they're bombing. They want to take over the government to be able to control the resources in the east. In the Middle East, it's about resources. I like the U.S. idea about freedom, liberty, but again, when they move into foreign countries, it comes down to resources. So as civil societies, as delegates, diplomats, and experts in various fields, how do we address the resource issue, global resources, that to reach all mankind? We have so much resources in the world, but it doesn't get across to everyone. And the whole bombing comes down to, you want to control our resources. In Congo, Zaire, Mali, Kenya, resources, oil, gold, diamond, plutonium, that's what it is. Multinationals are coming from here, from West, they're all in Nigeria, or they call Nigeria. They are drilling oil spill everywhere, nobody says nothing. The government is corrupt, they bribe them, and that's it. Gas alone in Nigeria can supply the whole of Africa, if you want to put it that way, if it's fully managed. But they won't let you manage it. So multinational you mentioned has much to do about the African child. How do you have the African child who is armed by the same multinationals who are also shipping, multinationals, corporations, I'm sorry to say this, are also involved in secret shipping and supply of arms into this continent, into these member states within the continent. So how do we as experts and delegates, civil society, address the issue of resource control so that all could benefit from global resource? That's just a question.
I think
Kelechi wants to.
let me talk about Carlo. Carlo, you are an alarmist. Please permit me to address you that way. Nigeria has not failed. I fought in that civil war, was wounded in a mortar, was a trained sniper, worked with Biafran intelligence. You cannot be more Biafran than I am. But I am not a Biafran. I am a Nigerian.
That's your
The
choice.
war has ended, I am an Igbo. And you do not know the immediate and remote cause of that war. Nigeria is not a failed state. Democracy has come into Nigeria after 35 years of military rule. We are where America was in the Barren Ages, where a few control the resources of America.
Exactly. So
And
what do we
that is
do?
where we are, but America never failed. In the 31, America went into economic crisis, but reinvented itself. Nigeria is reinventing itself.
No, America believes in America.
What
Nigeria doesn't believe in Nigeria.
What you have said that is correct is that the corruption is greater than people who are willing to work. But that also is a phase in the development of every nation. When you begin to put in laws, and the laws are being followed. In this same America, in 1979, I don't know where you were, I was here, there was what they call ABSCAM.
I was in high school.
Okay? Now, the state of New Jersey had the highest rate of corruption in the judiciary. And they invited FBI to come and help. At the end of the day, when the 3-year operation ended, a senator fell, a member of the Congress, because a process had been put in place to tackle corruption.
Wait.
Just in the United States of America.
All right, sure.
But this is a history of 200 plus years.
Okay.
Okay? It didn't just happen overnight. There was a process. And Nigeria is going to change because Nigeria is dependent on oil. When Nigeria has 19 other solid minerals. And then even the states that are within the region that is called Biafra, there are 5 states. The current governors that are running it have not run it properly.
They are looting the resources.
Excuse me.
They are looting the place.
Looting is a culture that was brought in by the British. It was not indigenous.
But British left 60 years ago.
Relax.
British left in 1960s. We are still doing the same way.
What we are saying today in Nigeria is
what?
exactly what Richard has said earlier in paraphrasing late JFK. That do not ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Who from Nigeria?
And that is why, after 35 years of living in America, I decided to go and do for Nigeria what Nigeria cannot do for me.
Sir, who created Nigeria? British. We never came one time together.
Excuse me.
Hang on.
Because of that,
It's a question, just
we are
ask me a
coming
question.
to Nigeria to say, this is what we want to do for that Nigeria, for the next generation to feel better than my generation saw. We want to make sure that, and even the North you're talking about,
Yeah,
you don't even know the topography of the North. For you to say they are all Muslims.
I said they are bombing everywhere. That's what I
Excuse me,
said.
please. The North has,
Islamists, they're bombing
the North
everywhere.
has 25% indigenous Christians in the North. The North has 343 ethnic groups. Therefore, if you say Islam should take over the northern part of Nigeria, the rights of the minority, who will protect it? Therefore, we need a larger constitution called Nigeria, so that the right of the minority is protected. And even in the eastern part of Nigeria, there have become indigenous Muslims who are from Igbo extraction, but they are in the minority. Their rights also need to be protected. But Nigeria is not the subject of discourse. The subject of discourse is Africa,
It's in the continent.
youth and terror.
Yeah, it's in the continent.
And what we need to say is the ideological base, which the rabbi have talked about. The child,
I agree with that.
the child needs to be calibrated psychologically, because he's the one that grows up to now become the 12-year-old whose mother is saying, urgent, shoot somebody. There are 1 million ways to make IEDs. There are 3,500 chemical compounds to make a bomb.
Okay.
There are 45,000 ways to make a bomb,
Okay.
apart from nuclear.
Okay.
And then the man who tells you he does not want Western education becomes the engineer and the chemist that builds an IED. Where did he read chemistry and physics?
From the Western
So,
education.
which means he is intellectual enough to build an IED. The issue of terrorism have become global because the actors have become the center stage, as I had enumerated earlier, of the Middle East. And that has moved all over the world. And again, we in Africa believes that civilization came from where? Egypt.
On the continent, yeah.
We believe that God, the center of the world, is Israel. We believe that all these things came from that angle called Middle East.
But those are
So
ancient.
those
What are we
things-
doing now? What are we doing now? What could be
Whether
done
it is ancient,
now?
what you must meet the past to come to now,
Absolutely, I
and to
agree.
go to the future. Let me end with that without being
Sorry,
combative.
Kelechi then, or Luke, then we are.
It's the first step.
Thank you, Prof. I think you've spoken quite extensively on this. And what I want to say is, when I was making my presentation, I said when you interview terrorists or people involved in this act, whether from the recruitment stage to the implementation to the operational, they are very intelligent men and women. If you're not intelligent, if you're not strategic, if you're not observant, if you're not dedicated, if you're not committed, you cannot plan a successful terrorist operation. Whether you try to indoctrinate someone and tell him, take this car, I want to give you this new Mercedes, and the person is very happy, but drive it to this bus stop. When you get there, somebody is coming to give you $500,000. You will see 1 million in that box, keep 500, bring back 500, but when you get there, call this number, the person will pick up, without knowing that he's just going on a mission. So the planners are not the executors. But for the reason for this topic, I want to address what Oman said. And Nigeria is not a failed state. I've lived it. For a very long time. I don't know how long you've been here or how far you left home. But not only Nigeria, every country in Africa, including Europe and here that we live, we are going through a process. Like terrorism and counter-terrorism is a process. My sister from the city will tell you that they've not gotten it all right since the planning stage, but they will not stop until they get there. They keep bringing ideas. They opened their office to new ideas and it keep coming. They keep putting it in good shape. The CTITF, the Counter-Terrorism Implementation Task Force, I work very closely with them. We went to Nigeria. We tried to work with the national government. You have to institute a Counter-Terrorism Implementation Task Force. We provide you with the necessary capacity that you need, but it is your responsibility to do the work. That's a step in the right direction. That's CTITF. So for the issue of oil and bunkering and resources,
how do you address it?
Listen, the issue of resources has never, at any point, constituted terrorism. Now listen to me. Listen.
What are you talking about?
Listen to me. The issue of resources, it can agitate people to behave on the contrary. The issue of resources can agitate people to take up arms, like the men. I said something about the Niger Delta militants. What they did in Nigeria, they didn't engage in any terrorist operation. Right?
No, they did.
They did not engage in any terrorist operation. What they did was to say, the oil companies, if you're not ready to develop our land, to stop the spillage, if you're not ready to help meet your own social responsibility, please leave. They didn't go to any of oil companies and start bombing everybody. They start pushing and bombing their pipelines and say, please leave.
Kidnapping?
Listen, two things are involved. If you're informed, you can be able to make your point.
I just told you.
There is one thing for someone to engage in an act of terror means trying to force you to do what he or she wants. And it's a different thing to be engaged in the act called terrorism. That's two different things. The young men in the Niger Delta, Nigeria, told the oil companies to leave. And they, listen to me, listen. When they're telling them to leave, they employ every necessary measures to make them leave.
They have a reason.
So you cannot look at that and look at the operation of the Al-Qaeda that comes and bomb the World Trade Center. These are two different things. They incite terror in your heart so that you get scared and you leave. And once you leave, they don't have any other thing to fight for. So they will tell you, finally, Shell has gone. And if you notice within the 6 months or 2 years of that struggle, all the oil companies left the Niger Delta and went to Lagos. Operation was totally shut down. The OPEC was affected. And what happened? Nothing has happened. The men did not have any other person to kidnap.
No.
So the oil companies are out. All the expatriates are out.
Amnesty.
So nothing else happened.
They were given amnesty.
Now you're going to a different thing.
No, it was,
no, I don't want you to make it back and forth discussion.
They were given free money.
Yeah, what I want to say is
$1 million a month, 1 million a month, each of them.
you are very wrong to make the insinuation that because there is oil spillage in the Niger Delta and because of government operation that Nigeria is a failed state. I totally disagree with you.
It's a failed state. It is failed. It has failed.
Before we close.
Thank you very much. So many things. Apparently, we should have this kind of conversation very often because
very important.
it's going in very different directions, and people are very passionate about it. I do have a very quick comment and a question for you. The Irgun, the pre-independent movement in Israel, the British mandate, would you consider that a terrorist organization given the objectives for which it was fighting? And secondly, we've all been praising God here. Is it possible that religion is part of the problem?